Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Sinister Carnival. The Isle of Wight had always been quiet, its narrow lanes and quaint seaside towns untouched by the turmoil of the mainland. But when the vibrant banners of a travelling carnival appeared overnight, stretching across the meadows just outside of town, a sense of excitement rippled through the island's normally placid community. Holly Arnold was among the first to notice the posters pasted along the high street. Bold, swelling letters invited residents to the Sinister Carnival, a name she found oddly unsettling. Holly had lived on the Isle of Wight her whole life, and nothing ever truly surprised her anymore. She was used to the ebb and flow of the tides, the whispering winds through the trees, and the occasional small-town drama. But the carnival was something else. It seemed to materialize from nowhere, like a bad omen carried on the wind. The locals whispered about it, about the way its airy crimson tents loomed larger than any carnival they'd ever seen. No one had seen it arrive. It had simply appeared. Curiosity got the better of Holly, and the night of the carnival's grand opening she decided to go. The first thing she noticed as she approached the grounds was the smell, sweet and sickly, like of ripe fruit left in the sun for too long. The air was thick with it, clinging to her skin. She tugged her jacket tighter around herself, shivering despite the warmth of the evening. The lights of the carnival flickered in the distance, too bright and garish against the quiet backdrop of the island's serene landscape. A Ferris wheel towered above the grounds, its creaky wooden carriages swaying gently in the breeze. Beneath it, dozens of smaller attractions called out to the visitors: funhouses, game booths, and vendors hawking candy floss that seemed almost luminescent under the neon glow of the lights. But what really caught Holly's eye was the carousel at the center of it all. It was an old thing, ancient even, its horses carved from dark wood with painted eyes that seemed to follow her as she walked past. Their grins were wide and unnatural, teeth too sharp and human-like. The entire scene felt wrong, like a place caught between time and decay, clinging to life in a way that made Holly's skin crawl. As she stepped further into the carnival grounds, the crowd seemed thinner than she expected. A few people milled about, but their faces were obscured in shadow, their features indistinct. Even the performers, who should have been lively and entertaining, moved with an eerie, mechanical grace. Their eyes were dull, lifeless. Something about their expressions made Holly uneasy, but she pushed the feeling aside. Then the accident started. It began innocuously enough. A girl on the Ferris wheel leaned over to catch her scarf, only to lose her balance and fall to the ground. The screams were sudden, sharp, but it was over in an instant. Holly had been standing nearby and saw the whole thing. The girl's body lay crumpled at the base of the wheel, limbs bent at impossible angles, her eyes wide open, staring blankly at the sky. The crowd had gasped, but the carnival workers moved quickly, wrapping the girl's body in a tarp and carrying it away as if it were nothing more than a nuisance, an inconvenience. There were no police, no medics, just the eerie, silent efficiency of the carnival's staff. Holly's stomach turned, and she backed away, her mind racing. She had to leave. This place wasn't right. But as she turned to leave, she found herself drawn back toward the carousel. Its wooden horses gleamed under the lights, their eyes glowing in the dark. Against her better judgment, she approached it again. "Holly," the whisper came from behind her. She spun around, but no one was there. Only the wooden horses, still grinning their two wide grins. Her heart raced. She didn't believe in ghosts or the supernatural, but this was something else. The carnival felt alive in a way she couldn't explain, as if the ground beneath her feet was pulsing with some hidden, malevolent force. More accidents followed. A young boy at the shooting gallery collapsed, blood pouring from his nose and ears without warning. A woman in the mirror maze disappeared, her reflection lingering far longer than it should have before vanishing completely. With each incident, the carnival workers would sweep in, clean up the scene, and continue as if nothing had happened. But Holly noticed something else too. The crowds weren't just thinning, they were vanishing. One by one, the visitors were disappearing. By the third day, the carnival grounds were nearly empty, save for a handful of people who moved like ghosts through the thickening fog. Holly had heard the whispers in town, people talking about how their loved ones hadn't returned from the carnival, how strange it was that no one seemed to care. But no one dared confront the carnival workers. It was as if the entire island had fallen under a spell, a haze of confusion and dread. Holly knew she had to get answers. She returned to the carnival that night, determined to find out what was happening. She wandered through the deserted grounds, her breath visible in the cool night air. The lights flickered above her, casting long, distorted shadows on the ground. That's when she saw the figure standing in the distance, just beyond the carousel. A tall man dressed in a ringmaster's coat, his face obscured by a shadowed top hat. Holly's heart pounded in her chest as she approached him. "Who are you?" she demanded. "What is this place?" The man turned slowly, his eyes glowing a dull. His smile was wide, far too wide for a human face. "The carnival is alive," he whispered, his voice like a chorus of voices layered on top of each other. "And it needs to feed." Holly took a step back. She wanted to run, but her feet wouldn't move. The ground beneath her shifted, almost as if the very earth was swallowing her whole. The carousel began to spin on its own, the horses' eyes glowing brighter and brighter until they were the only thing she could see. The last thing Holly heard was the sound of laughter, high-pitched, sinister, and echoing all around her before everything went black. When the sun rose the next morning, the carnival was gone. The meadows where it had stood were empty, the grass flattened in circular patterns. The people of the Isle of Wight woke to the strange silence, the absence of the carnival, and the absence of those who had visited it. Holly Arnold was never seen again. But some nights, when the wind howled across the moors and the sea was particularly still, the locals swore they could hear faint laughter carried on the breeze, the echo of a sinister carnival that had come and gone without a trace. The disappearance of Holly Arnold sent a wave of unease through the Isle of Wight. As more days passed, the sense of dread thickened, like a fog that clung to every corner of the island. Rumors spread quickly. Some said Holly had left the island, running away from something none of them could understand. Others whispered that the carnival had taken her, just like it had taken the others. But no one dared speak of the truth. They all felt deep down the carnival wasn't just gone. It had taken a part of the island with it. The local authorities tried to brush off the growing panic, attributing the disappearances to a tragic series of accidents and wanderers who had chosen to leave the island. But those who had visited the carnival knew better. The memory of it was too fresh, too real, and the darkness it left behind still lingered in their minds. People spoke of strange dreams, nightmares filled with garish colors, grotesque laughter, and spinning carousels that never seemed to stop. In the days that followed, something even stranger began to happen. Small items from the carnival started appearing across the island: old, rusted tickets, a broken wooden horse, fragments of red and white tents. Each item seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, like they were remnants of something that refused to die. Children found them in their gardens, shopkeepers discovered them on their doorsteps, and no one could explain where they came from. One evening, as the autumn winds began to pick up and the nights grew longer, Holly's childhood friend, Lucas, found something else: Holly's necklace. It was half buried in the sand along the shore, glinting under the fading light of the setting sun. Lucas had been out walking, restless and unable to shake the feeling that something terrible had happened to Holly. His hand shook as he picked up the necklace, the pendant cold and unnaturally heavy. He knew it was hers. She never went anywhere without it. A knot of fear twisted in his stomach as he stared out at the sea. The horizon stretched into darkness, but something flickered just at the edge of his vision, a brief, glowing light, like the flash of a distant carnival ride, just for an instant. He blinked and it was gone, but the chill that crawled down his spine remained. Lucas wasn't the only one. Several others who had visited the carnival began seeing strange flashes, glimpses of the impossible. At night, they swore they could hear faint music, the unmistakable sound of carnival tunes drifting on the wind, coming from nowhere and everywhere all at once. But the worst part was the laughter. It echoed in their minds, a haunting sound that wouldn't let them sleep. Determined to find out what had happened to Holly, Lucas gathered a small group of friends, those who hadn't disappeared but had witnessed the carnival's strange events. They knew they couldn't ignore the signs any longer. If the carnival had taken Holly, maybe there was a way to bring her back. Or maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to stop whatever curse had settled over the island. On the night of the next full moon, they returned to the meadow where the carnival had once stood. The air was colder than it should have been, and the ground seemed to pulse beneath their feet, as if alive with some hidden energy. Lucas led the group, Holly's necklace clutched tightly in his hand. As they approached the center of the field, a faint glow appeared on the horizon, exactly where Lucas had seen the flicker of light days before. Then, without warning, the carnival reappeared. It materialized in front of them, silent and ghostly at first, the outlines of its tent shimmering in the moonlight. But as they stepped closer, the lights flickered on, one by one, illuminating the twisted rides, the sinister carousel, and the looming Ferris wheel. The music followed a low, distorted melody that made their stomachs churn. The group stood frozen in place, their breath catching in their throats. The carnival was back, but it was different now. It felt more decayed, more monstrous, as if whatever darkness had taken root in its heart had grown stronger, feeding on the souls it had claimed. Lucas called out, his voice trembling. There was no response, only the soft hum of the carnival in the distance. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the entrance to the carousel. It was Holly. But something was wrong. She stood motionless, her face pale and gaunt, her eyes wide and unblinking. She wore the same clothes she had on the night she disappeared, but they were tattered, hanging loosely on her thin frame. Lucas rushed toward her, but as he got closer, he realized she wasn't alone. The horses of the carousel had come to life. Their wooden bodies creaked and groaned as they twisted toward him, their sharp teeth gleaming under the flickering lights. Holly, we're here to take you home, Lucas said. But Holly didn't move. She stared straight ahead, her lips parted slightly, as if she were trying to speak but couldn't. Then, in a voice that wasn't hers, she whispered, "You can't stop it." The ground beneath them trembled, and the lights of the carnival flared, casting long, jagged shadows across the meadow. The Ferris wheel began to spin wildly, the funhouse mirrors cracked and distorted, and the laughter of the terrible, shrill laughter grew louder. The carnival wasn't just feeding on the island. It was pulling them all into its twisted, malevolent world. The group scattered, panic rising as the carnival's dark magic surged around them. Rise came to life, distorted figures emerged from the shadows, and the very air seemed to hum with malevolent energy. Lucas was pulled back toward the carousel, Holly's lifeless form still standing in its shadow. He couldn't leave her. He wouldn't. "Come with me," he pleaded. For a moment it felt warm, human. But then it shifted, her skin cold and waxy, her fingers unnaturally stiff. Holly turned her head toward him, and for a fleeting second the real Holly was there. Her eyes softened, her lips trembled, and she whispered, "I'm sorry, Lucas." Before he could respond, the ground beneath him opened up. The last thing Lucas saw was Holly disappearing into the shadows, her figure fading into the carnival's grotesque embrace. By morning, the carnival was gone again, leaving behind nothing but an empty field and the lingering whispers of those who had vanished. The Isle of Wight would never be the same, haunted by the sinister carnival that had come and gone, leaving behind only ghostly memories and broken souls. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had a great day.